October 14, 2008. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow our heads. Please help myself and my fellow colleagues make the right decisions for the citizens of Newman. Amen. Roll call, please.
Councilman Payton?
Present.
Kelly?
Present.
Greenbaum?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martina?
Present.
Mayor Fantasia?
Present. Declarations of conflicts of interest. On this evening, ceremonial matters, none. Non-agenda items. If anybody from the public has anything they'd like to bring before us that is not on tonight's posted agenda, now would be the time. Seeing nothing, consent calendar. Item A, waive all readings of ordinances and resolutions except by title. Approval of warrants and approval of minutes of the September 23rd, 2008 regular meeting. I will excuse myself since I wasn't here on the regular meeting minutes, but
I'll excuse myself as well. I was not here.
was anybody here? Oh.
You had three. The important ones were here.
Okay.
I was here. I move for approval.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Public hearings, we have one this evening. Adopt resolution number 2008, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4. So we have two this evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is a familiar item that we haven't discussed in some time, but we are back on track on our nuisance process in the city. And as with others in the past, they relate to a lot of the foreclosures and tall grass, graffiti, these types of things. And tonight we have for you four different locations that we've exhausted all efforts to resolve successfully with property owners. So we would be asking you to authorize the abatement process to move forward so that we can correct these residences. There's some examples that have been on the screen of what we're talking about, some of the addresses. Any questions?
Questions? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anybody like to comment on these public nuisances? Seeing no one, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the council.
I so move that we adopt resolution number 2008, next number, declaring the existence of public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chief. And our second public hearing is introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2008, next to number, an ordinance amending Title 8 Health and Sanitation of the Newman City Code and adding Chapter 8.07, a medical marijuana dispensary ban, and authorize staff to prepare and publish a summary of said ordinance.
Forgot I was still up here. I wouldn't sit down. This is a introduction, first reading for a proposed permanent ban of medical marijuana dispensaries for the city of Newman. Previously, this council's discussed this item and made some changes to city code, specifically saying that any business in the city had to be in compliance with local law, state law, and federal law. And we know that there is some discrepancy on marijuana currently at the state level. It's heavily debated. Much of that is provided in your materials, but the law has been very clear as far as the federal government is concerned that marijuana is in fact illegal. Most, if not all, of the cities now in Stanislaus County have taken the approach that we're asking this council to take tonight, specifically outlawing medical marijuana dispensaries versus the general approach of saying that it has to be within the law in general. So what we're trying to do is we don't want to be the only city that doesn't have this, and obviously attract these type of individuals through any research that prospective entrepreneurs might look at. So this is identical ordinance that the cities of Oakdale, Riverbank, Modesto, Ceres, and so on, Turlock, have all adopted as well. So we're all speaking from the same sheet of music and taking this approach. You have a lot of research material that was provided on this. Obviously, a lot of debate has gone on. You'll see a number of cities have taken this approach throughout California. So if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Really, that's it in a nutshell. What we're trying to accomplish here. And of course, we'll come back for a second reading and so on.
Questions from the council?
Adam, a quick question, and it's an odd question, but where, let's say, because I all of a sudden I have 3 friends that are undergoing chemo and things, and from what I've read and heard, the marijuana definitely helps them in the sickness. Now, where could they go to get, I mean, is it Modesto, or are they, I mean, is there any place around here they could legally go?
Bay Area is the closest.
Bay Area then?
Yeah.
Oakland.
Oakland?
Oakland, Berkeley is kind of the center.
Okay. Well, at least,
Yeah.
thank you. No, that's good.
Further questions? Not, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anybody from the public like to comment on this first reading of the ordinance? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and this will be carried on to the next meeting, right?
We need a motion to introduce
Okay.
tonight.
I move to introduce the first reading of ordinance number 2008, next number.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Regular business, item A, presentation of quarterly budget update.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight I have for you, as promised, our quarterly update for the 2008-2009 budget. We had a few changes made to our current budget. Mainly in our general fund, we had 2 major changes and 1 major change in our redevelopment fund, and that's what I want to go over with you tonight. In our general fund, we had a property tax revenue hit of 19%. When we first estimated and we did our budget, we accounted for 14%, which is what the county had passed on to us. But when in June, after we had adopted the budget, they gave us the actual figures, which was 19%. So the hit to us is going to be an additional $30,000 loss to our general fund. The second main hit to our general fund is motor vehicle tax revenue, and that also is based on the assessed property values. So we'll have a decline in 19%, which we didn't account for in the first budget. That is another $180,000 loss to our general fund. So the bad news is we are going to have $210,000 more in expenditures for the year. The good news is we anticipated a greater loss, and we started to save for it in 2007, 2008. And this shows our breakdown in our savings. We budgeted for $4.4,818,000 for expenditures, and our actual expenditures came out to $4,036,943. So that gave us a cost savings of a little over $380,000. In the revenue, unfortunately, we did have a bit of loss in the revenue of $29,000. But the prior year savings is going to help maintain a positive general fund balance of $2.8 million. We anticipated, before the losses, we anticipated $2.6 million fund balance, but because we have this cost savings with the other loss, we're still pretty high, and we're still on the safe side. This shows what we had originally budgeted for, which, if you look here, the estimated revenues we budgeted at $3.7 million. And with the $210,000 difference, we're now at $3.5 million. The operating expenses will stay the same, which is little over $4 million. Our net income or loss, we had anticipated to be $326,000. That was before we had any transfers in or out. The transfers in are gas tax revenue that we take in, bring to the general fund, And the transfers out are generally amounts that we put into our capital account that we use to purchase new vehicles or maintenance for new vehicles and equipment. Those are all going to stay the same. This is where we would have a cost savings in the $68,000 if we didn't want to transfer that amount out. So it won't be as bad as a hit as it looks here if we decide not to. If we don't feel like we're doing a good enough job and we need more money in the fund balance, then we'll leave the $68,000 in there and possibly transfer it out in future years. So our estimated fund balance that we thought at the beginning of the year was $2.7 million. Our adjusted fund balance is $3.1 million. So like I said, we're still doing fine. We're at $2.8 million, which is still higher than the estimated fund balance. This is our general fund. Does anybody have any question? I know I was kind of quick about that. Does anybody have any questions?
I've got a question going back to the actual decrease based on county final evaluation on the property taxes. Are we going to see more hit as they reevaluate property and property taxes?
Not this year. They only reevaluate one year. They'll reevaluate in January for July. So if we did, it would hit next fiscal years.
Okay, so we're looking at
Right now,
next year.
19% is the highest hit that we will take for this year.
But we're probably could expect that again next year.
We could if they feel like we had such a great decline. The way it was explained to me is that the decline was so large, that's why the assessor decided to go back and reassess values. It doesn't seem like it would be if we don't have too much of a hit. We don't have too much continued construction. So if we do, it won't be as major. Unfortunately, the increase can only be 2% a year now instead of the increases we were getting before.
Is there a ceiling on the decrease, or there is
No.
not? So they can reevaluate down 20-30%.
Yes, and you could also request to have your property reevaluated. That's another downfall.
Aren't they doing that automatically?
They did do it automatically, but if you feel like you were missed, then you can request it. Doesn't mean the assessor will do it, but you still can try.
Anybody could put a request into
Yes.
the assessor's office to
Correct.
have
You
your
weren't
property.
automatically done.
Correct.
Yeah, anybody could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm actually on that appeals board as an alternate. There is a board if the staff doesn't agree.
Be Cindy Newman's.
Yeah.
Councilman,
I'd have a conflict on that.
Or Mayor.
Yeah.
if I might,
Sorry.
the way the county did it this year is basically they rolled anything that's changed hands from July of '03, they rolled everything back to July of '03 values. Now, there's a rumor, and we haven't been able to substantiate it yet, that now the county's looking at rolling things back to July 2000 values for the next coming year. So we could potentially be rolling those property values back even further, which has a direct effect on our property tax income. So we'll continue to keep you informed. This is why, at the urging of the council, our finance director, Ms. Sonia, will be up here giving quarterly updates as we get that information. So we're working with the best information that we have to date.
Are there any questions? Yeah.
Just like
Thank you.
Okay, let me continue because there's more bad news.
There's more.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Oh, great.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not done yet. Bob always wants reports. I told him I only come with bad news. We do, because of the state budget passing, one of the things that passed was a one-time takeaway from the redevelopment funds, which is the same as an ERAF shift that they did several years ago. The one-year hit comes with no repayments, and we do have a deadline, which I believe is May 10th, 2009, to pay it by. The hit on our redevelopment agency is $83,261. This is not something we had anticipated in the past. This is not even something that came up with the first couple budget requests, but unfortunately it's here. They're trying to do some stuff to fight it, but it doesn't look like anything's promising at this point. So basically, we're going to have an $83,000 hit to our account that we didn't anticipate before. We had a small cost savings. We collected $21,000 in revenue in that account in 07-08 that we hadn't anticipated. It was in property tax revenue. It was a little bit higher than we had estimated for in the beginning. So that'll help us a little bit, but as you can see, we're still going to have $60,000 hit. This is the same slide as before. The estimated revenues will stay the same. Our operating expenses will increase by the $83,000 loss. Transfers out will remain the same. So our current year activity will now be a $12,000 loss instead of a $70,000 gain. But because we adjusted our fund balance by $20,000, the hit is basically a $60,000 hit. And like I said, there's things that they're trying to do to fight it. Nothing seems promising at this point. Our first report is due November 1st. They put that date off. It was originally October 1st, but because the budget was accepted so late in the year that now they're giving us to November 1st, even though they have yet to create the forms for us to submit the report on. And like I said, our payment will be made May 10th. Any questions about this?
And that's just a one-time takeaway. There's
Yes.
not even a remote promise that maybe we might give you some money back.
No, no promises made. We're taking your money and that's that.
Checks in the mail.
Correct.
But they didn't promise that they wouldn't do it again next year.
Yeah.
They say it's a one-time hit for this year, I guess. Yeah. Not that they might not do it again
That's a
next year.
one-time hit in 08, 09,
Yeah.
but 09, 010 is a whole different story. So.
See what Arnold comes up with next year.
Arnold may not be around.
Good news is that they did, they saved the cops, so we kept the $100,000 grant that we generally have. So that was one thing we were afraid of losing, but we did keep that.
Further questions?
Oh, and one last thing.
You haven't heard us enough?
No, this is not, well, could be bad news, I'm not sure. My plan is to come back with a full new final budget in January. So how we did the budget at the beginning of the year, we'll do a completed one with all these updates and anything else that might come up in the next several months. Okay?
Thanks, Sonia.
Very good.
Sonia.
Thank you, so.
I'll sleep better tonight.
Yeah, right.
I just want to thank you, Sonia, for your great job on sorting this all out and being fiscally responsible and knowing what was going to happen. And other cities would be jealous of our reserves, even though we had to dip into them this year. For our size budget, we do have a health reserve, and it's because of over the years we've been fiscally responsible. Thank you to Michael. Item B, report on reimbursement request for installation of public improvements by Newman City Tow.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may know, Newman City Tow has been operating in our community for a number of years now, and they've been operating out of the Prino site, which is at Main Street and Merced Street and Highway 33, and they've been storing the vehicles in the back. Newman City Tow had petitioned the city to do a storage facility tow yard at the corner of Inyo and L Street. That would be the southeast corner there. And if you've driven by it, you've seen the photos. I apologize, we didn't have those in there for you today. But as part of the development of it, he had to widen the road 5 feet and install curb gutter and sidewalk along Inyo. And he also installed curb along L Street, but since that's an industrial area, we didn't put the sidewalks in. But since Inyo is a major collector, that's where the sidewalks go. With that, the property owner, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, had to incur the expenses of $17,358. As part of that, he's asking that those improvements, the $17,000, are public improvements, so he's asking for city assistance on that. What we can tell you is he paid approximately $6,000 in traffic impact fees, and then as part of the redevelopment agency, we will also get tax increments, so that's going to help us with our revenue there. All told, the city, and under our recommendation, we're recommending that we approve a $10,000 reimbursement for it, not the full 17, and we would recoup that in less than 4 years from tax increment.
So, Micah, he actually went above and beyond than what we requested to do.
Well, because it's on a major collector, we're asking for the reimbursement. If it was just
Because it was on the corner and everything?
That's correct. If it was just a typical residential street, we wouldn't do it. But since it's in one of our capital corridors, that's why we're recommending that we reimburse him for $10,000.
The building does look very nice, by the way.
Yeah,
Very
he
nice.
actually, with the help of the Architecture Review Committee, if you haven't gone by there, he put some stone wainscot on the bottom.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
Dressed up the building a little bit. It's not just a
Typical
sheet-
metal
Yeah,
building.
it's not a typical sheet
Yeah.
metal building, which actually lends itself because, as you know, that becomes a new corridor into the Newman Business Park, Industrial Park area in the back. So he did a really good job on it.
Questions, comments?
Any way that we can support new business, I'm all for it.
Is that a motion?
Is there other comments first?
Is there other comments?
Then I'll make that a motion that we do approve the request from Newman City Tow.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item C, report from Supervisor DeMartini.
Good evening, Mayor Panazia, council members. Well, your meetings just move right along so fast.
No time to sleep,
Is that a
Tim.
hint? I have to bring some of the Patterson City Council here to see your meetings. You know, they go on till
I've caught theirs on tape, and yeah, they do kind of drag on.
Well, you guys just don't waste any time at all, so that's really nice. I just had one comment tonight on the Orristemma Creek flood control project. We did have a conference call on October 2nd where we went over the costs of various scenarios. I didn't bring those costs in today, so I can't recall all the exact figures on them, but judging from cost benefit, a hybrid model was tentatively selected as the raising of Stir Road to about I think it's a 200-year floodplain, a drainage ditch to drain water back into the river, which they've got a fancier name for it, but I forget what it was called. But what it is-
Bypass channel.
Bypass channel, that's right. It's a drain ditch, is really what everybody else would call it, but the bypass channel sounds nicer. That scenario, along with some restoration of the creek itself to increase the flow to about 4,000 feet. And the cost of that, of those three things there, is still what has to be determined. They have to do a little more hydrology to see just how much it's going to help. Most of the work was done, so I think, in my opinion, that's probably going to be about the best we can get, is the bypass channel, raising Stir Road, and improving the flow in Orristemma Creek to maybe 4,000 second feet, probably, maybe 4. And although that's not what we envisioned the project would be, I know we thought the detention dam would be the best, but it's just so cost prohibitive. It's about $85 million. And just from memory, I think the combination of the other three scenarios is around 30 million, something like that. It's still very expensive. Our public works director is working with the Corps of Engineers to see what can be done to keep costs down as low as possible by using, for instance, the dirt from the bypass channel to raise Stir Road with, and that would be significant savings. The problem with this scenario is that it will block Newman to the north for good, because everything outside of that would be in the floodplain. Anything north of Stir Road. There also is a problem that some of the farmland will be flooded. There's no way to prevent it all, although the bypass channel will help, but it's just not the very best thing that could be done, but it is the most cost effective. When the Corps of Engineers looks at a project, they look at the benefit and the cost, and they have a ratio. And if it doesn't meet a certain ratio, you don't get any funding for it at all. So the federal government could kick in, half of the money, states, and some will have to be done through an assessment district. But this is not over yet, but this is the direction that it looks like we're going in. So I don't know when the next meeting is set, but they're doing some more work, and then you'll be hearing more about it later. But that's where we're at this time. And that's all I have tonight. Anybody, if there are any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Questions?
Jim, so they spent what, did you say $60 million studying this thing to?
$6 million.
3 million?
3 million, it's been
To
studied.
build a ditch?
Well, it's a little bit more to it than that.
No, I
We've
know,
studied-
I'm kidding, but
We've studied frogs, sycamore trees,
I remember, yeah.
kit fox, hydrology, plants, weeds. It's the amount of hydrology work done is just tremendous. What it is, it's been a great job for engineers, but they have actually figured the flow of where this water would go at a 50-year flood, 100-year flood, 200 and 500. And where the water would go, and if these scenarios were put into place, like raising the Stir Road, for instance, what would flood, and how it would impact the city, the damage it would cause. And if you added the bypass channel, which is a ditch, they did a different cost analysis. If you increase the flow of the creek, it was a different one. It's actually pretty complicated what they've done, and they've run all these models. But it did cost $3 million and take years to do. But I don't think that you can study it any more than what this has been studied. I think this is...
John, is this the alternative to levee system with the interceptor channel?
Yes.
That they were talking about?
Yes.
Jim, in all their studies, did they look at the main bottleneck, which is a railroad trestle?
Yes.
Yeah.
They did?
Mhm.
And what'd they say about that?
That's part of the whole overall plan is redoing that trestle also. No matter which.
Yeah, that's part of it.
No matter which option is done in the end, that's part of it.
Yeah, that has to be done because you get trash and, brush and trees that just backs up the water. Part of the flood control project too is more than just the city of Newman. It's the surrounding farmland that's really impacted too. So you're looking at, what can be best for the city and how can you minimize the flooding on the farmland. Now, the only way to stop all the flooding was a detention dam, but the cost was very high to do that. So I think that's probably what you're going to have to settle for.
Yeah.
Never give up.
That's right.
my compliments to you and John for holding in there for all this time. You've done a heck of a job to get it to this far. Thank you very much.
Like I said, it's
Good
not over
job.
yet.
Yeah.
Well,
We
you
could-
guys have come a long way just in the few years I've been here.
But this really has been a struggle because we had to deal with the Corps of Engineers, the Fish and Wildlife, the Nature Conservatory, the city, the county, the state, and we've had just a lot of meetings, and it's a lot of work has been done on this too. We've analyzed it every way that there is to analyze it, and now the final hydrology studies will be done and the actual cost, and then the cost-benefit ratio. This has turned out to be a lot more complicated, I think, than what anybody ever expected. Now, there has to be a series of things done to relieve the flooding, from the railroad trestle to widening the creek, to levees, to drain ditch, bypass channel, I guess you'd call it. That's not anybody's preferred solution to the problem, but I think it's still going to be around $30 million, and I think that's about all the money you can come up with. It will force Newman to grow in the future. If you look, way off into the future, probably into Merced County, which you may have to ask Merced to readjust the county line, so you can do that, long term. I'm talking about, because once you reach Stir Road, that's as far as you're going. You really can't put houses in a floodplain. And it will be a big floodplain. It'll have a drain ditch and everything in, so you may, if the city continues to grow, very long term from now, probably a realignment of the county lines. And this has been done before. I think Merced, or either Merced or Madera did it recently with Fresno County. Do you remember which one, Tom?
That's right. And then back in the old days, most of us were part of Mariposa County.
Yeah, so, they can be moved around, so it's not the end of the world. It's certainly not the best solution, but it is, what will work and what we all can afford.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Staff reports?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the county line movement that Supervisor was speaking about was Merced County and Fresno County. And I think they were fighting over the metropolis of South Dos Palace.
Actually, it went east. They took off Valeria Road all the way out to Bryant Road. They took in about 5.5 square miles.
It's like the
It was-
loser took it? Is that what it was?
It was actually something that caught my eye just for that very reason, because if just for local demographics purposes, people who live north of the Wasteway are really tend to be more a part of Newman and Stanislaus County than they are for Merced County and Gustine.
They have a
But
Newman address.
Yeah.
Sanchez Road, there's a Newman address, Newman
So-
phone numbers.
But they're in
Merced County,
yeah. So issues, comments. At our next meeting, we're going to talk about the projects I had been talking to the council, or giving you a heads up on, coming up with some financing plans for the plaza and for the aquatic center. So we're going to do a full presentation to you on those and kind of lay out some options for the council so that you can provide direction to staff on how you would like to proceed and move forward with seeking out funding options for those and moving forward with those projects. We have 5 scheduled meetings left for the council for this calendar year. That would be the 28th of this month. That would be the 11th of November. The 11th of November is Veterans Day. We have the 25th of November, which is typically the 2 days before Thanksgiving, which in my recent past or my recent history of the city, the council has foregoed that meeting. We have the 9th of December, and then we have the 23rd of December, which typically, again, is a meeting that the council has foregone. So with that, if we're just working off of history, we have three meetings left, one of which falls on Veterans Day. So we are going to continue to have that scheduled. At this point in time, we don't see any reason why we need to meet on the 25th of November. So we're going to go ahead and schedule that one off, and we'll plan around this. Again, I guess my main question is the Veterans Day meeting, which is 11/11. As staff, we were planning, even though the city's closed that day, we still plan on coming to a meeting that day. Would the council like to have that meeting on the 11th and continue with that date? Would you like to move it back to the 18th, and then you can really get 2 meetings? You give you a little extra time before the 25th, and then instead of going a whole month from 11/11 to 12/9.
I like the 18th.
You like the 18th?
I didn't with the rest of the council.
I'm sure the election won't be certified by then, but
The election,
we'll have to
it's-
have another meeting.
It's doubtful that the election
yeah.
will be certified before the 18th.
Yeah, the 18th, that would be fine. We probably should not have it on Veterans Day, I would think.
I would agree. I concur.
Tom, is there anything special we need to do other than give proper notice?
Right, we'll just cancel those and have a special meeting on the 18th.
Okay. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, we have 3 remaining city council meetings. The first meeting is October 28th. That will be our next regularly scheduled meeting. The meeting following that is regularly scheduled for 11/11, which is November 11th. But since it's Veterans Day, we're going to cancel that meeting and hold a special meeting on 11/18.
There's one caveat to that, as there are certain things we couldn't pass at a special meeting, so I will double check
Okay.
to see with Mike Meyer to see what we have coming up and what might be on tonight and carried over.
Okay.
How does it work when a regular scheduled meeting falls on a holiday, though? There's no provision to reschedule
There,
the meet.
if it would fall on it, but if you're skipping skipping around, I believe it's treated differently.
Okay.
We had our introduction of an ordinance this time. It'll be, second reading will be on the 28th. We'll just, as staff, we'll
Yeah.
just prepare ourselves and educate ourselves on what we can and cannot do on a special meeting, and we'll make the appropriate.
I don't think it's an issue, I just wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mike will check that. And then the meeting on November 25th will be canceled. And then on 12/9, December 9th will be the meeting in December. In all likelihood, the elections will be certified and we'll seat our new council on 12/9. And then the meeting on 12/23 will be canceled. And that'll be the remaining of the schedule.
I was gonna, just for council knowledge, I'm gonna be out of town on the 28th, 29th, and 30th at a out of town training. So I will not be present meeting on the 28th.
Of this month?
So, yeah.
Okay. Just a reminder for the council and for the community, this is City Cleanup Week. So make sure you fill up your trucks and get it on down to Berlotti's lot. We have animal control. You've seen that in the news a lot lately, with the county voting to cancel their contracts with all the cities with the hopes of renegotiating those contracts. And also, there's a lot of talk about the new animal shelter being constructed by the county. That's an issue that we as a city and a community need to address. What I can tell you is you will not like the numbers that are coming to us. Currently, I think we pay about $18,000. Let's just add 6 figures to it. We're looking at about $122,000 a year is what the county would like to charge us for our service. So we, as staff, have already started talking with other communities, our community to the south, our community to the north, looking at all of our options and what we can do. That's a significant amount of money that, for our residents to have to travel to South Modesto to go pick up an animal is not real conducive for them. And for $122,000, that's just not an option that we think it should be considered by us as a community. So we need to figure out alternative routes, and we are actively looking at those. So that is something that's going to occur in all likelihood on the 18th. We need to take a direction. So we'll try to get you some preliminary information on the 28th to try to, plant some seeds for you. And then we'll probably need some direction by the council on November 18th, because December 1 comes, if we haven't told the county one thing or another, they're going to cancel us out, and we will have no animal control service for our community.
I think it's, excuse me, I think it's wise that you're having talks with our neighbors to the north and south. I think maybe something could be done on the west side.
That's correct, and that's what we're looking at.
Wise move.
We had, the meeting today was jointly us and Patterson, and Gustine was invited, and apparently something had occurred with her schedule, so she couldn't make it today, but all 3 cities were going to be participating today, so
Good.
we'll continue to have those discussions. We've also, as recent as 3 or 4 months ago, we've had this conversation with Gustine and asked them to provide us a number, what it would take for them to provide us, to contract with them for animal control services. And at first glance, that number wasn't too nice, but now we're starting to rethinking it's a lot lower than what the county's offering us. And it's a lot easier for our residents to reclaim their animals if they do get picked up. So. And then lastly, in your pack, there was the financials from the theater. So if you have any questions of that, or feel free to stop by, we can talk about that. And otherwise, that's the theater coming and providing you a copy of their annual update and financials. That's all that I had.
Questions for Michael? Other staff reports? Ernie, you've been pretty quiet over there. So.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I just have one item. We finally got the Rule 28 project undergrounding for Plaza Going this week, Mid-Cal Pipeline, so once we relocated their water line, they're doing the work. And so they're putting in the conduits for AT&T and for Comcast and for PG&E. They did hit a gas line this morning, but it was a plastic gas line, so it was a little excitement there, but nothing major. PG&E repaired it really quick, and they hadn't marked it properly, so. We did notice, mail notices to all the property owners, the affected property owners, and we also went around and handed out the notices. So the completion date for this project is December, and once this section is completed, then we'll continue with the other two sections of the District 5, and they'll continue until 2009, 2010, until the whole thing is completed. Any questions?
Thanks.
Thanks, Ernie.
Thank you, Ernie.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Chief?
Probably you noticed in last week's paper that we've had a series of arsons occurring in the city. Those have we haven't had a repeat since the article, but nonetheless, it's something we're monitoring and hope that people are paying attention to what their children are doing after hours and et cetera, and where they're going and what they have in their possession. But that's an issue that could get worse very quickly. So we're been dealing with that, but an 800% increase in our arson crime for the year. With that though, our crime statistics, I don't want to jinx myself too much, but through September, things are looking very promising for year-end results. Probably in double-digit, I can safely say double-digit reductions from 2007. So we're pleased that that's happening. Hopefully, will continue. Then everyone's probably aware of the major injury collision that occurred earlier in the week, or actually it'd be last week, of the 7-year-old boy that was crossing the street and was struck by a car. That could have obviously been much worse, so it was very serious and he's critically injured. Not a lot of fault on the driver, but we're thankful that he's going to be okay. But that consumed a lot of our time this week as well. We're still looking for volunteers. Anybody out there? We need help with the graffiti abatement program. We're still trying to get that off the ground, as well as help around the department. And lastly, just in the last 4 months, we've recovered 2 replica firearms, and one of was earlier at the end of May. The other one was just minutes before this meeting. And these firearms are identical to the firearm that I'm wearing right now, a real firearm. You cannot tell the difference in the slightest to the magazine, to the barrel, etc. These are airsoft pistols that is becoming a popular sport, sort of pushed paintball out of the way, and paintball was not a problem because the guns typically looked very odd and unusual, nothing like a real firearm, where these are manufactured in identical look. And for parents that are here in the room or out there, you've got to pay attention to what your parents or you're buying for your children, and be aware that we're just a heartbeat away from a tragedy and would devastate this community. And those just have no place in a public setting. It's very dangerous for the police officers, very dangerous for people in possession of them. And you just cannot tell them apart from daylight, and certainly not at night. So very, very, very dangerous thing to purchase for your children, and they can be purchased very easily from your local sporting goods store to online. But if you're purchasing those, they should be distinctly different from a regular firearm. And an orange tip, although the law only says it has to be an orange tip, it just isn't enough. It's pretty easy to cover up with a Sharpie the orange on the tip of this gun, or paint or whatever, or just scrape it off and you're left with nothing. So very, very dangerous, so please be careful. Any questions?
One question, how's your neighborhood watch program coming?
It's slowly but surely moving along. Unfortunately, we don't have as many people volunteering to be in leadership roles, to host meetings and actually coordinate things in the neighborhood. We do have some meetings that either have just taken place or are about to. But we only had about 6 volunteers to be actually neighborhood watch captains that coordinate what's actually happening in the neighborhood and work directly with us and so on. So we're making progress, but not to the level that we would like to see. But we do need more people to step up and to be leadership roles in their community or their neighborhood to sort of take that charge and direct what's happening and be our, direct contact, et cetera. But still a lot of interest. We're communicating with those people and trying to keep them on board. And some are more active than others, which is fairly typical. So, but overall, we're pleased with the crime that's happening. Or not
You find
happening.
it one part of the city more so than the other?
No, I don't really have that tonight to be able to tell you. I didn't break it down that way. I would have to look into that to be sure, but I don't know that for sure, one way or the other.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, thanks.
Down with your staff report. No, that's good. Only good news. If not, then we're good. We're good for now. Council comments. Ed?
I have nothing this evening, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Ted?
The only comment I have is what the chief was talking about, that accident. I left my house to go over. I had some people over, and I went over to get some groceries and stuff for it. And there was nothing going on. And then when I was coming back, I have to compliment the area, because when I was coming back, all of a sudden it looked like somebody was having one heck of a party. You couldn't tell. I mean, there was a ton of people, and people, moving the cars, and the police weren't even there yet. And people helping, and it really was wonderful to see the community just jump in there and make sure this kid was all right. How is he, by the way?
He was very seriously injured, but expected to have full recovery. But he was severely.
He was, yeah. I mean, but the people was amazing, watching people helping and not just gawkers. So it was very nice to see our community. As a matter of fact, somebody was with me, and she lives up actually in Diablo Grande, and she said, boy, that's wonderful, the way that those people reacted to that as a community. So it was nice to hear that too. So thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Bob?
Oh, just to mention, I ride through alleys just to look for graffiti.
Right through L.
And anyway, I was really amazed that I didn't
Make a
find
note of
any.
that.
I didn't find any. There was very few that I did find, and it was really refreshing to drive the alleys and see there's no graffiti out there. But I would assume that's one area that you find a lot of graffiti.
Yeah, and this weekend was actually bad. We had obviously some visitors from the East Bay who left us their calling card, East Side Oakland, and all these kinds of things. So probably some visitors to family over the weekend for football and left us a little present. But,
Yeah, I did see one of the gas pumps at the gas station, and I think that was removed immediately. But it's one thing that is so irritating to see any graffiti out there that I think if we all keep our eyes open and see if we can prevent some of it.
all the, we talked a while back about the business owners cooperating and closing off their spray paint. They've all done that, so
Excellent.
hopefully that'll have some impact.
I know, is that,
Thank you.
sorry, Bob.
Go ahead.
That has that group, the graffiti group, how's that coming?
That hasn't gone
Nothing
well.
yet?
That's one of the things I asked about was additional volunteers for it. I think he only has 3 volunteers so far, so he's sort of on his own right now, and he's trying to get the one of the clubs at the high school to help right now. But so he hasn't given up, but we're still fighting for that.
I mean, would we be able to, pay people to do that? I mean, as a,
Out of your salary? Or?
yeah, take it out of my salary.
Better ask Sonia about that.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm just, throwing out so you don't have to worry about volunteers that.
Well, that was one of the things we're trying to get away from, is tying it to the city. We can provide some supplies, but we're hoping that the community step forward, because then crossing the private property boundary, with the volunteers taking that extra step as opposed to being the municipal government doing it. And the Muni Code says 7 days for us, so that's why we were trying to bridge that gap there. So
So
look
no.
into it. We'll look into it for you.
Not right now. Bob, anything else?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mike?
John, I've got two things, and I apologize, I should have brought these up during staff reports, but the first one's a question referring to the letter that you sent us from the Regional Water Quality Board, and part of it was posing an answer to the I-Bank. How does that affect our process there?
Yeah, now that we have that letter, we're actually in the process of pursuing our financing. We met last week with the USDA, and they've indicated that they do have potential for grants. So we're going to submit a pre-application to them. Our preliminary review really indicates that we're probably not going to be eligible for grant money, but we're going to submit the application in the hopes that we are. In the meantime, we're going to run a parallel process with the iBank, and so our two potential funding sources would be the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, and the iBank, which is the State Infrastructure Bank. A third potential source that we've identified in case it's necessary is private financing, where lenders would come in and lend us money to do that. But it's easier, the terms are quicker, but you pay a little bit more for your dollar, and so we're trying to again keep the cost to a minimum for our residents. And so,
And the second question I had, in the paper recently, you've read about one of the fuel distributors locating their tax bases out of Modesto wholly, where they receive the fuel, and how does that affect us down here with our local distributor?
we haven't been able to figure that out, but what we can say is that business generates about $55,000 a year in revenues for the city. Now, my understanding of the contract is they're only looking, not the retail, not the drive-up traffic and sales. The only thing that Modesto would grab would be government and commercial contracts that are negotiated in their community. So if that's the case, we'd probably terminate our contract with them, and hope that local businesses would as well, and try to find a local vendor that would help out. But I know some of this stuff is going to be challenged in court, and so it's just a matter of what that's going to be. But we're not privy to the contract, and we're not privy to the private company's contracts that they've negotiated. So we don't know for certain how many private or commercial government contracts that Brashears has. So it's hard for us to estimate what the fiscal impact is on us right now. So, but we'll keep an eye on that. It's definitely something we're concerned about.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. And I had nothing. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I think.
Oh, Chamber Mixer, October 22nd, right? October 22nd, Wednesday night, G-Bar Inn, 6 o'clock. Everyone's welcome.
I move for adjournment, Mr. Mayor.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.